the wild world of the diagnostic lab space, nothing is off limits. With science, compliance, sales, and marketing, welcome to Lab Results with your host, Blake Ford. All right, everyone, happy Cinco de Mayo. Today is May the 5th, which honestly, Nate, it's a lot less of an important day today that I don't drink alcohol than it was, say, whenever I was, 23, 24, 25 years old. But today I have Mr. Nate Mullins with me. Nate is the number one, will finish the year as the number one ranked sales rep at Precision. Precision is a specialty toxicology laboratory. It's got a great reputation. I'm eager to learn more for you, Nate. Nate, welcome to Lab Results.
Thank you, Blake. Good to be here on Cinco de Mayo.
Where are you at today? Because I know that you've got kind of markets in different time zones. So where are you at today?
I'm at my home base right now in downtown Denver. So nice. Mountain time right now.
Where else do you cover?
Right now I cover the whole state of Colorado and all of the Hawaiian Islands.
So you just kind of got a chance to pick the two most glorious places in America.
Mountains and ocean.
Dude, if you're going to do it, right? Why not do it where you enjoy the scenery?
Exactly.
Are you an outdoors guy?
I am. Yes. Not quite like you get in Colorado. I don't have a VIP membership to REI or anything like that, but I do get out there. Like to hike, kayak, fish. Haven't picked up skiing or snowboarding yet. Yeah. I don't really feel like getting too bad of an injury.
Yeah. Well, just for everybody listening too, Nate and I have a little bit of history together. We worked together once upon a time, and actually a couple of times over the last maybe 8 or 9 years, we've been able to team up on a project or two, and I've been able to send some money your way for helping some folks out. And it's, for the most part, it's worked out. Hasn't always been a glorious landing, but for the most part, it's worked out.
That seems to be the theme in many lab industry professionals. It seemed to kind of work out.
It started with good intentions. I think today we're going to get a little bit of lab anthology, a little bit of the history of laboratory diagnostic lab. You being a toxicology expert, a lot of the buzz around the industry right now is in molecular. It's around, the COVID crossover is what I'm calling it. There's a lot of laboratories right now. I was at ECW last week, and a lot of laboratories are just popped up. It was funny. Somebody coined the term frat bros lab. We got frat bros lab out of Baton Rouge, and they're trying to figure out now how they're going to go and do UTI testing for nursing homes. But that's the truth. You have some well-intended, not very well thought out business plans out there right now. But you are in, one of the more mature lines of business now. It wasn't always that way. We came into it kind of the same time, but you're in one of the more mature lines of business. How did you get into lab? How did you get into toxicology specifically?
That's a really interesting story. So a lot of people ask me that in general. A lot of folks that are thinking about, maybe a career change or getting into medical sales, how did you get into what you do? Because a lot of people that don't have an extreme knowledge of the industry already, they hear about drug testing and they're like, wait a minute, what? This is a career? And it's like, yes, it's a huge part of healthcare. But again, how does that happen? And I had a very, very close friend of mine that I worked with that as well, Justin, down at Disney World. And we worked together at a restaurant there waiting tables. And we became very close. And I went into real estate, and I was a real estate agent in Florida for a few years. And he went into toxicology straight out of a sales program out of UCF. And after a few years of, him working in that industry, I became very curious of what he did because he was being very successful, doing very well for himself. And, he introduced me to it, kind of explained what he did. And then an opportunity came up where a laboratory was starting up, and they wanted to hire him, but he was working in cancer at the moment, some oncology devices. And so he wasn't able to take that opportunity, and he asked if I wanted to reference, and I said absolutely. And so he kind of took me under his wing and showed me the initial ropes of the industry, and that's how I got my way in.
So, I know Justin. Back then that OC program, or excuse me, that Central Florida program.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's still rearing today, but if you're a laboratory out there, there are colleges that actually have, you know, medical specific sales programs. They have across the country where they're teaching them, about the problem, the possibility, the path, and the pitch. They're teaching them about, how insurance works. There's so many times I have somebody that comes over, say from real estate, and they get locked up on the impossible task of understanding payer contracts and in-network versus out-of-network and EOBs versus actual bills. And we spend so much time because they get, almost paralysis by analysis on not being able to understand why do we get paid differently on different plans. And once they get through a billing cycle, they're not prepared yet to understand how to get the doctors in the offices to survive a billing cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting. It's interesting that you were able to make the transition with some mentorship. Specifically, I use real estate as an example a lot of times because some of our best sales reps I've ever worked with have come from health insurance, phone rooms, and real estate. Right. And it just has a lot to do with the relationship, the ability to weather the storm of hearing no a bunch of times. And then they have the background in insurance. So what was some of your first, wins when you got into the business?
I do remember my first good size win, like what I would consider the real win, was in an Orlando area. And it was a psychiatry office doing Suboxone, and of course, and I remember finding it on the CLIA website. That was a tactic for looking for leads that Justin had taught me. Searching the CLIA licenses and CLIA waivers to see who might be testing and narrowing that down. And man, that office was not an easy one. It took multiple meetings, earning the trust. And honestly, looking back, it's funny. Anytime you become, let's say, a professional at something, or you do something for many years, those early wins, you go back and you say, how world did I win that with my knowledge at that time and what I was doing?
I know the office you're talking about. I remember kind of helping with some of that, some of the plan. I'll tell you the funny story. Whenever I went to AIT, the Florida sales rep over there called on the doctor's office, and she said, I have this huge opportunity. And she named the practice, and I was like, yeah, is she still there? Is she still there? Is he still there? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. And I was like, it's a great opportunity. Yeah. And they were leaving a lab. Funny enough. Yeah. I've gotten it twice. I helped
right.
It helped twice. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. I remember, I'll never forget that one. Yeah. Cause that was like the first substantial win. And anytime you get one of those larger accounts, it's a moment.
Yeah. So, that's a really good kind of segue into the way that you go about and plan your day. Like the purpose of me bringing on sales reps onto the program, I could call it the championship series or the sales champion series or the president's club series, right? The spirit of it is we've got high performers in the industry amongst a bunch of average performers or low performers. And there are people that need to hear one or two little combination, like they're like 2 or 3 combinations away from being able to unlock it and just see it. Mm-hmm. How do you go about right now, like mining for the gold in your book of business and setting up, the difference between those large accounts and those small accounts? Like, what's some advice that you can give folks on how you go about that process, Nate?
How I go about in general, booking or prospecting or.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Kind of the whole bucket.
Yeah. If you're taking a look at, like, some people will die, old man in the sea looking for that whale, they've got that big fish and that's it. That's what's going to save them. And they got hopium in their pipeline. They hope it's going to close.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be 100 a day when it closes, and everybody buys into it, but people get tired of hearing that. So like, how do you go about, building a book of business that gets you to number one?
The whales are obviously important. You don't want to ignore a whale. You want those always in your pipeline. You always want to be working those, but you've got to, everybody always talks about diversifying your book of business. And they're not just talking about specialties, addiction, pain, family practice, OB, stuff like that. Size, you got to have a variety of sized accounts as well. And it can get difficult because, like you said, you get hopium in your blood, and you start whale hunting, and you forget about these smaller accounts and smaller opportunities. I still, work my butt off for the smallest accounts. Even with a big book of business, getting whales, and I'm still going after whales, of course, but I'm still spending a copious amount of time on a 5 a month, a 10 a month, a 15 a month, specimen account, because for me, it keeps me sharp. It keeps me in tune what all types of practices need, the process, because onboarding, the pitch, staying comfortable with everything and up to date, takes repetition, practice. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Right.
Sometimes, even if you go on vacation, you take a vacation, you're gone for a few weeks, you come back, that first cold call, man, you fall on your face a lot of times. You're just, out of practice with it. So I feel like it's
I still hate, like, I train people to overcome and to detach themselves from the no, but I still have so much anxiety whenever I go into a cold call, and I'm great at them. Like, I am literally, I love doing them once I'm there, but you have to like, I do a second self meditation before I go in. Like, sometimes I'll in the car, and I want to separate the last conversation from the next conversation. So I'll do like 3 to 5 minutes of box breathing. Breathe in for a count, hold your breath, breathe out for a count, hold your breath. Because I want to make a complete separation energetically from whatever was going on in my life before that cold call. That process, when it's right, it's like meeting a best friend for the first time. It's like meeting somebody who's going to, because I'm expecting to build a relationship with them, but it ain't easy.
No,
it ain't easy.
It is not. It's funny. You say, you take some box breathing, meditate a second, and that's great, because it does, it resets everything, kind of hits a reset button. And, people also need to understand it doesn't need to come in the form of that. For me, sometimes I'll throw on some heavy metal and it just takes me someplace else completely. And, if I can separate mentally from what happened just now completely, whatever can do that, and then I stop, and then I reset, recalibrate, and here I am fresh. Right. So it doesn't have to be, meditating. It can be, of course, it's great. It can be anything that really
what you just described is what we call a shift move. And it absolutely 100% that reset button. Warrior would teach us to do, 5 burpees, 5 deep breaths, and then 5 loud screams. Like, just because you really wanted to go ahead and say, okay, all that just happened, it's done. We're moving on now. And it was just basically a shift move. And I love the death metal analogy. That's great. That's a gold brick to drop on somebody. Whatever you got to do to get out of your own way, the next person that you're going to talk to is the most important person that you're going to talk to that day. And if you're thinking about the no that you got from the doctor's office before, if you're thinking about the trash you forgot to take out, if you're thinking about the argument you had with your wife, or if you're thinking about, I got to drop my kid off at soccer, if you're thinking about your commission check and you're on your agenda and not on their agenda, guess what? They feel it. Yep. So past the the practice of it and kind of diversifying your book of business, how do you prepare when you approach a new, nothing about it, it's going to be a cold call? How do you prepare inside of your approach? Because I know you do a lot of research.
Research is, really important. And, sometimes it's hard to accurately describe what I mean by research, because you don't want to go down this deep rabbit hole of nonsense with, okay, well, this is a specialty and I just found their MA on LinkedIn and they went to this, like, no, just understand what the practice specialty could be about, the area. You can go on their website, see what insurances that they accept, because many times websites will already tell you that ahead of time. Hey, now seeing patients for this, or, accepting Medicaid now. And, as long as you know in your territory, your payer landscape, that's going to tell you a lot about the practice in general.
What I love about your high performance is like, you guys have what's called, I call it the curse of knowledge. That's somebody else's term, not mine. It's like, when you just laid out, you're like, we're not doing a ton of research, but you've made it so efficient, and you hit, without even taking another breath, the 4 or 5 critical things that you're going to have to talk about with the client. So, that would rewind this and let Nate tell it to you again, because it's super important. Their payer mix, the specialty, understanding who they are, the problem, the patients that they serve. They put it on their website for a reason. You should probably look at it before you go into the call, right?
Oh, absolutely. I always try to find a website before I go in, just so I have just a base knowledge. And I also try not to, like I said, go too deep, because I don't want to go in there with too much of an agenda. Because if I go up there too loaded, again, I'm thinking about the research I did and not the interaction I'm about to have.
Yeah.
Because that person at gatekeeper at the front that I'm going to start talking to just honestly probably wants to talk to somebody that isn't yelling at them about an appointment, and isn't, trying to use them to get the business, manipulate them into something. So, have that knowledge, your research go in, and then just be a normal human.
Yeah. The thing that always, when I do ride-alongs and I see sales reps pitching the entire thing to the gatekeeper, and this one time the gatekeeper was like, I only book lunches.
That's all I do.
If you want a lunch, you can have a lunch. And if somebody cancels, I'll call you. I'll let you know. You can come earlier, but like, I don't do the specimen collection. I don't do vaginal swabs.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking
about. I'm not doing a bacteria.
I just started 30 minutes ago. I have no idea.
The turnover, right? And that's the other thing too, is have you noticed that people are different? Gatekeepers are different in the morning than they are in the afternoon, or that if you hit on the same person the same time, that you'll have a different outcome.
Yeah. Timing does make a difference. Obviously, you can't use that as an excuse not to walk into an office, but definitely be prepared for different, I guess, vibes from them. In the morning, a lot of people are fresh. It's, you would think maybe first thing in the morning is not a good time, but it's actually a great time, because they haven't had a million people beating them up all day, and they've got that energy to work with you and talk to you and help you out. Whereas in the afternoons, midday, you've got to be a little more empathetic to what have they been through up to this point to deal with me coming in trying to do business.
Do you call ahead of time and do any like type of phone work before you go out, or are you Zig Ziglar belly to belly? I just cold call on the road.
It's really interesting, and I've gotten this question a lot because my career has spanned a lot of territories. I've worked in Florida, Mississippi, Louisiana, Michigan, Colorado, and Hawaii. And one thing consistent to all of them: you got to cold call, you got to find business. Right now, what has been different in just about all of them is the approach. For example, in Michigan, phones, I would get nowhere in person. Going in person, offices just seemed to be crazy busy. Nobody had time for it. All business, call later, come back another time. But I could book 13 lunches in the span of like 2 hours on the phone in Michigan. And then I land in Colorado, and I said, all right, my first day, I sit down, I got my list of everywhere to call. I spent a week just shredding Excel sheets of phone calls, not one meeting, not one. And I said, okay, I got to get out there. And then I got out there and in person, and then every office I went into, meeting, 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 meeting. So it's environmentally, you kind of got to adjust to what it's like in your territory. And there's a learning curve there too, right? So if one thing's not working, you got to try another.
You dropped some pretty good tidbits there. I was helping a rep develop the Colorado market, and this dude had a hustle bone like I had never seen before. I mean, from the first time I met him, there was no doubt that this guy and I we had the same work ethic, same energy level. And I still enjoy this person. Pace Hilton. He's freaking awesome. So Pace came with a plan, and he's like, I'm going to call everybody, dude. That's how I made my money before. He called high ticket hospitals, and he was like, I'm going to call, I'm going to call, I'm going to call, I'm going to call. And he got nowhere. And it was one of those things. It was hard for me to let some of the other leadership that was around me understand that phones was a good thing, and they had their place depending on the market. But it was almost like they wanted to throw the baby out with the bathwater because phones weren't working. But on the flip side, in Florida, I had a sales rep that literally during the pandemic did nothing but call on the phone. Never walked into one doctor's office, multiple in Florida. In Mississippi, you get people on the phone. You can get them on the phone. They'll talk to you. They're sweet. I used to tell sales reps, whenever they have a mixture of city and rural offices, for them to switch between the two if they get into a -5, because you start talking those country offices, and they're so nice. They're so nice. They spend time with you. Becky's just going to talk to you on the phone. She's going to set
all day,
you up. Make sure you're okay, because they're at a different pace. So I'd go get my spiritual cup filled up with the rural office, and then I'm back to the city.
I'll go get beat up.
So from setting appointments, so I mean, as you're kind of planning your day, you get 13 appointments in an hour. You've got a good plan going into it. How do you manage the cold calling in the middle of a busy day?
I typically plan everything out. If I'm one thing that I do is, and what advice to a new rep or somebody taking over a territory, my biggest advice there is to come out of the gate swinging. There's no reason for you to say, well, I just started in this territory, so I'm going to kind of go get the lay. No, this is your moment. Nobody's seen you before. Nobody's heard you before. So get out there and get it. So I immediately grid out my territory. If I take something over, I start a new territory, and I, make my lists by region, by area. And if I'm driving south out of Denver down to Pueblo, and, I'm just starting this territory, I have a list of 60 offices that I need to go to. And so that first day down there, I don't have time for random cold calls. If I do come across one that happens to be very convenient, I can do it, make some notes. If I see something and I really want to get through my plan for the day, I'll make some notes and add it to another day down there. I find it, for me, very important to have a whole day planned out, because
you are a structure sales rep. You have to have structure inside of your world. I've seen your methods before. I know why you're number one, and it is because what you just described was, I have a priority list and I'm prepared for the day. If one of them cancels on you, all right, let's go have fun. Let's go meet some new folks. But otherwise, if everything is on the calendar, everything's on the calendar.
Correct. And typically, if you're doing things right, you are not going to make it through that list by any means. Because if you're doing things right, you've got your whole day stacked. You say, okay, I've got just enough time in this. If I leave my place at 6 a.m. and I get back at 6 p.m., I have just enough time to make it to all of these incredibly efficiently. But if you do well in one of those meetings, you're there for a long time.
Yeah. You're creative though. at the end of the day, I've seen you in the pocket, like you're doing things that are always above board, but you're trying to figure out ways to be able to serve the client, and you do care about the patient experience. That's been one of my biggest impressions from you, is you really, you're there. Let me tell you something. Less than 1% of the sales reps that I have worked with bird dog an account like you do after the sale. Like that's, I'd tell you that 100% hands down from working with you, the times that I have, there's very few people like Ross McDowell at AIT and you, I would say, are the two top on my list as far as how they actually like micromanage and make sure that the results are there, the timing on it, asking questions before the client asks questions. You're asking questions before it becomes a problem. And for some reason, some labs, they don't really work well with that sometimes. Like they get mad because you're engaged, and it's like, dude, like this is how we're supposed to be, guys.
Right. Yeah, some labs can view it as why are you creating hypothetical problems that aren't going to happen. It's like, well, let's say they aren't going to happen, but we need to be prepared to navigate this if it does. And there's no harm in us talking that through. Let's, there's zero, and if it never happens, awesome, it never happened. But if it does, bam, we're ready and we've got the answer. And, that's really impressive. And that really speaks to your professionalism and your ability to support a clinic. If they come up with this issue or a problem does happen, you have the answer immediately, or because you can also, anticipate these. And there's a little disconnect. I mean, I will defend labs to a certain extent as well. That kind of push back on that is that, again, you said the curse of knowledge. We're in the field, maybe someplace along that sales cycle, I heard somebody say something about a concern that could happen at some point. We earn the business, and then I bring that piece back, and I want to get an answer for that because I'm anticipating that person might go after that question again. So there is method to the madness, but the laboratory doesn't see that whole process, so it can come out of the blue to them, right?
We cause all problems. Like as a sales force, if I'm sitting in the sales seat, we cause every problem that the laboratory experiences. The way that we onboard, the way that we pitch, the expectations that we set, the missing information that we allow to come through, the phone calls, the shipping problems, FedEx, the report, like all of that we basically cause. And I think where a lot of laboratories miss is empowering the sales reps to be able to also fix. And in as much that I need to know that I have a client that is doing something consistently wrong, so that way I can go back out and retrain them so that way they stop doing it.
Yes.
You could be, and it could a lot with, I think with people in the lab, like say accessioning teams and folks in the laboratories also fail to realize is that there's so much turnover in doctors' offices. I could have a clean rec for 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden I've got somebody that's, not putting the Blue Cross Blue Shield type on the paper, or is forgetting to scan and attach. And they throw their hands up and they're like, the sales reps don't know what they're doing. People aren't doing their jobs.
You're training their offices. They're not
training their offices. And it's like, no, we had somebody go on vacation, or, Becky got pregnant, or no, she had some turnover. They got quit. Thank you for alerting me. I need to go back in now. And this is ongoing. I got to retrain. It's a constant retraining and an opportunity to be able to like reconnect with the clinic too. Mm-hmm. It's a good thing to uncover problems because it allows us to go back in and have meaningful dialogue with the clinic and say, I'm paying attention to you. I care about you. This is how we can get better together. Right.
Right. Yeah. You want to, like you said, it gives you an opportunity to go back with reason, with something, with action items, continuing to build that relationship. Mm-hmm. And, that's another piece to continuing to service an account and maintaining business is to make sure that you're consistently bringing value. you don't want to just show up just to show up, and you want to have something to talk about, something to bring. Sometimes it is you just need to go by and say hello, because if you do your job right, that office is smooth, and if they're doing their job right, the office is smooth, and that's part of the conversation. You can even show up and say, guys, like, how are you guys running so smoothly? Like, I typically have to go fix things. And now it's you're complimenting, and you're talking real talk with people.
How do you get their attention?
How do you mean?
Like, as far as like, we are always warring that there's a war for attention. Like, the fight inside of a doctor's office, for me at least, is always to make sure that I have their attention, that I get them to go from interested to committed. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, there's everybody else is doing the same thing. Like, if I ask you what lunch you provide and you say Panera, I'm not your friend anymore. What lunch do you provide?
What lunch do I?
Yeah. What lunch do you normally provide to the offices? Or
I don't have a go-to, honestly, because typically when I book a lunch, I ask them several questions. I say, you guys got dietary restrictions? Of course, standard stuff. You don't want to kill anybody with peanuts. That's your business. You don't want to lose it that way. Right. But there's other questions you can ask, things like, what do you guys absolutely not want?
Yeah.
Because, and what they're going to say? Panera. They're going to say Panera. Very rarely, unless you're in a super rural area, like 2.5 hours out from the city, those people will say, can you please bring Panera or Chick-fil-A? Yeah. Those are the two, always, because they never get it. Right. So, and then a lot of times I'll say, okay, what are some great local spots by you guys that are awesome? Mm-hmm. And I get them to list like a few of them, and then I'll check and, see which ones work with like the price range, making sure everything's, good to go there. And then I bring something from there because, they feel a little invested there. And I'll tell you what, nothing gets someone's attention more than food they love.
And the ability to be able to serve them too. Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. You were a waiter and a bartender before you got into real estate in this. So, mm-hmm. That's a bonus to me when I'm reviewing resumes. A lot of people like leave that off. If you're a lab sales rep, you have relevant experience on your resume. Leave the fact that you waited tables and bartended on it. Mm-hmm. And if the people who are interviewing you on the other side don't appreciate, and when you speak to, I know how to serve and do in-services because I worked at a fast-paced Mexican restaurant, like that, I know now that whenever I hire you, you're going to know how to make sure the cups and the ice and the lemonade and the tea, and you're going to separate the salad dressings, and you're going to be able to give that experience. And let me tell you something, that's as important a moment as there is that ability to be able to actually serve and connect with them, right?
Mm-hmm. Under pressure.
Under pressure, while you're educating them, while they're chewing with their mouth open and not paying attention to you on the phone. Like
they're having their conversation with each other at the table. I've never really thought of that connection, but it's true. Walking up to a table that you're about to serve, and they're in deep conversation, and you've got to engage them, because guess what? You need to get that order and get to the next order and the next one. So you need to be able to engage with them quickly, efficiently, and not offensively.
Mm-hmm. And that's it. That's the art of small talk. Like what bartending taught me was the art of small talk. I can go in and have 2 or 3 words with you, and I'm thinking, I got to get a tip. 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 I'm thinking the more I talk, I shake hands, like my tips would go up if I make you laugh. It's about the experience. It's about the entertainment. Well, I need to build relationships with these people. And so the ability to be able to actually connect with them while they're eating, I'm there for a purpose. Like these wall hanger reps that just go in and they just sit in the back of the wall. It's like, why are you even in the business? You know what I mean? Like what you could do something great, and give them the best experience. And it doesn't have to be. I used to cook red beans and rice on Mondays. I'd cook a big pot of red beans and rice. I was raising my laboratory on a budget. Me and Alan Couvillon, Alan Couvillon, and I loved working with Alan, man. He has so much energy. He's like 60 years old now, and he looks like he's 35. You know? He's still one of my favorite people. He used to go and get these big old meatballs, and he'd get the meatballs for like $1.50 from a great Italian restaurant. He'd have the pasta, a pan of pasta, and a pan of Caesar salad and dressing, right? And we were at $2.75 a head. And we were bringing them literally the best food possible. I'd cook a big pot of red beans. I'd cook a big pot of red beans with a black iron skillet of some cornbread. And I'm like, it's 70 cents a head. I look at these Panera receipts and I'm like, $17 a head, $22 a head for what? The cookie costs more than what I can do it under a budget if I use my head. Like, I will terminate your ass if you show me that. Like, because it shows me that you're not trying. The worst part is now they're paying waiter. Mm-hmm. So you now have the delivery fee, the waiter fee, and the tip. They're tipping somebody else to do their job. I'm sorry, I got to live it on a soapbox, man.
No, it's a real thing. But going back to your point. It does show specific attention, right? Like you said, you're serving them. I'm going to go back to where you said, whenever you're asking about, boutique places, smaller mom and pop places, you're already showing that you're interacting with them as an individual, not as just like another cog in the machine. Mm-hmm. Right. And it creates a relationship.
Got to build a relationship. I got to have that. So there's that cool energy exchange. And then it goes on from that. If you have a good lunch, the reason why we can walk out with samples, is because we know how to, first off, like, if I can go to a Publix and go to their salad bar and get romaine lettuce, spinach, iceberg, get 4 or 5 different meats, lay it all out night, have all the vegetables laid out real nice, get a fat-free and like a ranch type of dressing, roll in there with a Diet Coke and a 7-Up and some bottles of water, and get a bag of ice. And if I call on somebody at 11 o'clock, I could be serving them lunch at 11:50.
Right. Yeah.
I'm assuming, what do you guys, you want salad? I'll go to the salad bar right now. And I'm doing it for 30. I can feed a whole office for $37. Mm-hmm. So from an expense standpoint, that makes sense too, because I need to have the experience that I could walk on water for them. So that way they know that I can handle missing information. I can handle FedEx. This is the way that I'm going to attend to you throughout our whole relationship.
There's a million ways in the sales process, and that's definitely a big one, that you can establish yourself as someone they can count on. Mm-hmm. Someone that follows through with commitments, is dependable, keeps to the word, and can get things done for them. And that's a huge way. If you can pull something together and make it happen, what they're asking for very quickly, that says a lot. If you do that and you have a lunch and all of a sudden the doctor had to leave that day on emergency, they didn't expect it, you were going to have lunch, and you did not get to speak to one single decision maker, you already raised your stock as a rep, as a person with your product in that office, so that when you go back 3 weeks later, they see you differently than just that other person comes in, and you're already building your brand with that client.
Coffee and cake pops.
Cake pops. Love cake pops.
Coffee and cake pops, man. Like, that's the other thing. Again, low, not a high expensive item, something that's nice, low, but that's for the intimate folks. But you give somebody a sweet treat at 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, their favorite type of coffee, and you swing by like that. And what I'm just spending some time on right now is that there's a creativity that comes from you when you want to be a servant of the process. You'll find great ways to be able to connect with the people that you're serving. Mm-hmm. So let me flip from the kind of that in-service and lunch piece, and then maintaining the relationships we talked about. But what about getting referrals, Nate? Like, do you have clients that send you business or recommend you because of your way?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And that's, it's not like the biggest source of leads and prospects, but they are high quality when you do get them, right? And many times you have to ask for them. Sometimes, folks will be like, hey, you know what, have you gone to this person, or have you thought about talking to this person, or, and they'll offer that up, and that's fantastic. But I think a lot of people forget, again, this step of, once you've established a relationship and, you're servicing somebody very well and they're very happy, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, do you have any other providers in the area you think we should go talk to? And yeah, I mean, here in Colorado, that's been huge. There's been a lot of referrals. And, if you work in the treatment space, especially, what a lot of new reps to treatment, yep, they all know each other. They all know each other.
Yeah, they have their own. There's associations that you can join. You can give your laboratory join, like the Louisiana Nursing Home Association. You can join it for like $700 for the year. You have access to everybody's email address, their phone call, their phone numbers, their title, their position, and then you go to the meetings. And again, we're talking about networking with folks, so that way we can build connections. I can do it online now in LinkedIn and Facebook business groups, which I've taken a lot of, kind of that aspect right now, I think is going to open up for sales reps in a way that, pre-COVID, we were able to go and do the trade shows, or you were able to go to that, nursing home association. But the quality of the referrals, it's because of the social proof, Nate. It's because somebody else is basically giving you the recommendation. So how could we do that in our normal sales process? Like, how can you bring basically kind of that testament and testimony with you? Do you guys do anything like that at Precision?
I'm trying to follow exactly how you mean.
So I'll go Coach Blake just for a second. So at the end of the day, the reason why the high quality comes is because they've completely bought into you, and they've already said yes because somebody else pitched them for you.
Right.
So the question is like, how do you automate that? Is there a way inside of your current construct where people could meet you before they meet you?
Outside of referrals, I don't really have anything for that, really, unless, like I said, it's organic, where an MA moved from one office to another office, and they've heard about. I mean, I will say that I did just close an account, a good paying account here in Colorado. I don't know if this really follows along the lines of what you're asking, but I had to hunt this down because a pain clinic closed and someone was going to open up a new one. Nobody knew who it was, where it was. So I had to find them, and finally got a hold of them and started chit-chatting a little bit. And, after, just a few minutes of conversation, it was, oh, I know, I'm familiar with you guys. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, wait, oh, are you really? And it ends up that she had worked at a clinic like years ago.
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago that used us. And she's like, oh yeah, I'm familiar. I'm already familiar. But that's different.
It's kind of all along the lines, because, the thing what we're trying to do right now with the Core Academy is we're trying to create a process where we are digitally, we call it digital diagnostics, where we're actually out there and we are putting our message and videos and webinars in front of the client before they meet with Nate, right? So the whole idea here is if I can get them shaking their head saying that's right before they meet with you, if we get them to click on a link and then we put a pixel on them, we can retarget ads to them. They have apps. I mean, the ability to be able to do the in-app placements of ads. You can do geofencing. You can select just their IP address. You get real sophisticated for not a whole lot of money to be able to have them see your ads. We get them to sign up on your webinar. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Is
okay.
A lot of what when we look at like, hey, where do you get most of your success? And if I'd say, hey man, where's your highest quality wins come from? and you say, well, they come from referrals. I don't get a lot of them, but they come from referrals. That's always good quality business. My mind automatically goes to, all right, how can we get more of that? That's
Right.
yeah, I kind of went on a rabbit trail with you there, but
No, no,
and
no.
I wasn't sure if that was a strategy that Precision had yet.
I do know that, in the past, we've done some things where we would proactively ship some materials or, some specimen testing materials and supplies to say, hey, this is who we are. And make sure that it's very targeted as far as, are they, do they run an addiction treatment program? Do they own a pain organization? Something like that. Haven't really gone the full digital side as far as I know. I know that, of course, we have a LinkedIn presence and there's that stuff, but targeting ads, I mean, that's probably, that's very sophisticated. And I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a path for it because, I mean, everything is moving in that direction.
We're in diagnostic laboratory. Like if you asked 100 labs, what's your advertising budget? What's your marketing budget? They're going to look at you like you're crazy. Every other business has a substantial amount of money that they put towards it. In diagnostic lab, we ask our best and most high quality human beings. I can't say that because there's all good employees across the board, but the ones who can close accounts, we ask them to drive 3.5 hours to cold call. Like it's just, that's just because that's the way we've always done it. So
I guess that's the marketing budget.
I'm shaking. That's the marketing. That's it. We spend a lot of money on the time that our sales reps drive in the car and doing these in services. So
I think it would take I think that that's a real thing, right? Like this obviously IP address marketing, ads and apps, and that's effective, right? So I do think that maybe there's a mentality shift that would need to happen because right now it's our sales reps are the marketing, they're the people, they're on the ground, and this is how we get it done. It's effective. This is how we show results because we can justify the cost of this because of these results. So I think that if someone found true success through those avenues, then it would be a shift.
Me too. It'd be like a Me Too type of thing where once somebody would see it, everyone would do it because it's such a look-alike type of industry. So one of the other ways in kind of getting back more to the belly sales. So, you get stopped, a lot of times gatekeeper brings you back, you talk to whoever the point person is or whoever's available to visit with. You ask them some questions, establish some, you're an expert in the problem. And then, you give them a simple pitch and they're like, no, I don't really see, doing that. That's not how I really practice. I start hearing those eyes, but I know that they've got 16, 17 providers that actually work in it. One of the best questions I found to ask is who here in your practice has the personality type that would want to learn about something like this? And they'll be like, oh, well, Deborah she just graduated. She's in here all the time telling us to do new stuff. She'd be great. I need to find the bell cow. I need to find the person inside of the office that the first person isn't the same person isn't the same the second time they hear my pitch or the third time they hear my pitch, because the seeds of doubt start growing inside of their head, right? They start to change. You want to hope you hope that on number 9 or number 10, they're now telling you, I've been thinking, mate, toxicology screening is a good idea. And I'd like to do it. And you're like, I've been talking to you about this for a year. Thanks, man.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. I've got an organization. I've got a second one I'm working on much like it. And it's the same process. It was a very rural behavioral health clinic doing Vivitrol and Suboxone and utilizing solely point of care cups. That's it. And I would go in there repeatedly, talking to the nurse manager, like, are you sure you don't want to just try it and compare, continue doing your cups, let's look at the comparison. Because I mean, I'm telling you right now, your ClearWave cups don't have fentanyl.
Hmm.
And I'm telling you, there's a lot of fentanyl in this area. And, no, don't want it, don't need it. And finally, I just had to find the right person there. So I found my way to their CMO, and I got the CMO on the phone, had a couple of Zoom calls, and all of a sudden it was her making the call of saying, okay, let's do a comparison. We do a comparison, we try it out, and that nurse manager ended up getting promoted recently to a higher role. And I sat down with her, I think a week ago, and they've been our clinic for about 10 months. And we sat down and she said, yeah, things are going really smoothly. It's amazing. She said, like I wouldn't remember. She said, I don't know if you remember, but I really just was fully against this with you and just really, kind of shut you out over and over again. And I was like, yeah, I remember.
I remember.
I
I remember.
remember. I remember. And she's like, I can admit when I'm wrong, and it's those scenarios where, someone's not being combative or turning you down out of malice. They just thought they were correct.
Yeah,
Right.
we said it 3 times now, Curse of Knowledge, but there's a book by, I think, Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. And he talks about the difference between you're right and that's right. And the importance between the distinction between the two. If you hear a client or a prospect saying, you're right, you're in an argument. You just don't realize it. You're in a debate, because if I'm right, they're wrong. And that's not how I want to even be close. Like I'm 6'2", 250 pounds. If I end up in an argument with somebody, I'm always going to be the bad guy. Right. I can't have that swagger. Sure, smaller people maybe so, but I can't. So I got to be a that's right guy. So when I'm talking with clients, I don't want to be right or wrong. I want to introduce the idea and for them to look at the subject and us looking at from the same side by side, say, that's right. Now we're talking about something else, and we have a moment in time and a place that they can go on a journey with me. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Fentanyl right. Being on the cup. That's right.
Yeah.
Right. It's a good idea. That's right. And so we can disarm folks a lot of times with the way that we negotiate. What do you read? Are you a reader? I mean, you're always traveling all over the damn place. I follow you like you're a travel host. I hope a travel channel picks you up because I think you're interesting. But what do you read and consume from a sales and a marketing and a leadership standpoint?
It changes frequently, but I do tons of Audible, obviously, because I've got a lot of windshield time. Mm-hmm. So, that can be a lot of beneficial time, a lot of self-reflection time, or a lot of wasted time. Really your choice what you want to do with it. Sometimes you want to waste it. But I do a lot of Audible books. Some have been, traditional, like Never Split the Difference. There's some very traditional sales books out there. But I also, I like to listen to a lot of sales psychology books, psychology books in general. Mindset by Carol Dweck is an incredible book that I think all salespeople, doesn't sound like a sales book, and it's technically not, but it will help you in your career. So I'm constantly, and I'm asking other people for suggestions all the time. And then I'll listen to some, out there books just to, expand my knowledge and try to get some cross training.
I haven't read these yet, but I was sitting next to a young man on the plane yesterday, and he had a marketing book in his hand. So I was like, well, let's talk. So he's a product marketer. He really cool story he told me, but there are 3 books he told me that I just wrote down. The Thank You Economy, which I believe is by Gary Vee. Contagious, going viral, like how to get ideas to go viral. Talking Like Ted. And then he gave me a software to look at called Copy AI.
Interesting. I think that one of them sounds like a book. I believe it's called Made to Stick.
Yeah, Made to Stick. Yeah, I actually have. That's the book I'm listening to right now on Audible. Literally, Made to Stick right here.
Yeah.
Right.
Great book.
So the thing about it is like what this is, people are still with us all the way at the end of this, and we'll wrap pretty soon, but it's, we're sitting next to people on airplanes and we're asking them what books they're reading because we're looking for the advantage. We're listening to psychology books while we're in our car because we know that could be the difference between me being able to close a client and not. The ability for them to want and desire to do business with my laboratory or not. And effectively, the ability for a patient to get the care that we provide or not. Our job is a hard job. The buffalo that we hunt are doctors. And the ego that sometimes is in that place because of how medicine is structured in this country, like the way we collide with that and we expand a worldview is very important. And it takes, dude, you got to be a psychologist. You got to be a salesperson, a marketer, a copywriter. You've got to be a scientist. You got to be a nurse practitioner, never a doctor, a nurse practitioner. You have to be all of those things in order to pull off what we do, Nate.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be able to understand where these individuals are coming from. And a lot of that does just come from experience and interactions and learning, on the spot, about needs and, what they could be going through that day. So, have you read the book, Against Empathy?
No.
It's an interesting one.
So,
Rational compassion is what that author thinks is more important than empathy. Sorry, that we could go on a huge tangent on that, but it just made me think of that. So, because I didn't want to say you want to be empathetic with the staff, but you want to be rationally compassionate and understand, where they're coming from and, their pains.
Yeah, we said pain shared is pain divided. I mean, I think the key here for any brand new sales rep who's listening to this particular podcast, or any laboratory executive that's listening to this podcast, and you're wondering, like, what are the qualities inside of your sales force that makes them win, or what could get somebody to go from Disney to working in a restaurant and real estate to a journey to become the number one sales rep at one of the nation's best toxicology laboratories. I mean, it's a thirst for knowledge. It's a ravaged curiosity. It's the ability to be able to connect with people. And it's a very strong give a shit bone. It's conscientiousness and competence cannot be overlooked when you're picking your sales team. You have somebody who's conscientious and they're following up and following through and they're making sure that the job is done right. And you have somebody who is competent. That's a winning combination. That's the win-win combination that you want when you're picking your sales force, Nate. I think you're the epitome of that, man. I thank you very much for spending some time with me early in the morning. For spending time for me, man. All right, brother. Any final thoughts? Any closing things? Best advice you can give any brand new sales rep, day one, starting out? What would it be?
I would say nothing is more important than work ethic. Outwork the other people. Give yourself more opportunities. That's going to be the number one. The more you get out there, the more you do it, the better you get, the faster you get better at it. And I'm telling you, you might not be able to outsell or out strategize somebody, but you can outwork anybody. And that's your choice.
You've been listening to Lab Results with Blake, and I'm your host, Blake Bork, with a closing message. Our whole target with this podcast is to positively impact the lives of 10,000 sales reps. And the best way we know how to do that is going to be by looking at the share button. The reason why is that's basically you telling us that we've done a good job impacting your life positively. And so you're now giving permission to share that message to your crew. So smash the share button. Let us know that we're doing a good job. Give us a like. That's great too. Subscribe. Absolutely. But the best thing that we can say is by sharing, greatness is contagious. And none of us woke up this morning to be average. We all woke up to be great. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again soon.